Hey guys, Disaster Patrick here. Just a few nights ago, I was out with some friends and I got issued a really unique challenge that I wanted to share with you. I was sitting around eating dinner and one of my friends turned to me and said, I have always wanted to ask you this. And I said, what's that? What is the greatest disaster movie of all time? And that's a good question because there's a lot of different kinds of disaster movies where you talk about sort of these, apocalyptic style events, or ones where it's a flood, or it's a massive hurricane, or it's, a Sharknado, whatever. But there's a lot of different kinds of disaster movies out there. So I thought, I'm here in a laboratory and I thought, what a perfect place to be exploring this particular disaster movie. This movie, in my opinion, the greatest of all time, and the criteria I really use for it is one that realistically depicts every single stage of emergency management. It's talking about what we call the ready phase, so planning and training and all that kind of thing. Then the react phase, which is, the moment that we discover a disaster occurs, how do people react? And that has to be done in a realistic way. Then about response. And in response, we talk about evacuations, sheltering in place, and locking down. And this movie has all three of those things in multiple points in the film. It's really amazing. And then we talk about recovery, which is how do we take care of the baseline functions we have to do in order to continue to operate on a day-to-day basis. So electricity, food, all those kinds of things. This movie really depicts that very, very well. And then lastly is the one that I call reversing disaster, which is sort of taking the disaster and turning it into an opportunity to make yourself even stronger afterwards. You may not think it is a disaster movie, but I'm gonna prove that to you too, because I'm gonna tell you how great this is as a disaster film and why it is that this perfectly embodies emergency management, recovery, all those things that we think about as disaster professionals. So my challenge today is to prove to you that Jurassic Park is the greatest disaster movie of all time. So let's get started. The first part is ready. So it's the ready phase. And that's the part where we talk about disaster planning, training, drills, all that stuff. And they don't do any of that stuff. One of the things that's really important is that they don't actually do any disaster planning at all. The movie depicts an organization that essentially really hasn't planned for disasters, and that is extremely common. I've worked with all kinds of small businesses from all around the country. I've worked with restaurants and bars and nursing homes and apiaries and underwater cable operations, all kinds of small businesses, and I can tell you the vast majority of them do nothing at all. That's what you see in Jurassic Park. You have this massive theme park on this beautiful island, but it's very isolated. It's off the coast of Costa Rica, and the Gulf of Mexico, where that's located, gets a lot of hurricanes, gets a lot of tropical storms, gets a lot of flooding, and they did no planning for any of that. When the guests actually get in the cars and they begin their slow tour around the island, they have no idea what to do if disaster strikes. The second reason within Ready is the number of hazards that are actually depicted in the movie. And this is incredible. I don't think I've seen this in very many disaster films, and none of them have ever done it as effectively as Jurassic Park. We really categorize hazards as being natural hazards, technological hazards, and security hazards. With natural hazards, we think about hurricanes and tornadoes and tsunamis, and Jurassic Park has that. In fact, there is a massive tropical storm that is just about to cover the island, and of course, it occurs right when they're in front of the T-Rex pen, which is absolutely perfect. And it's at night. So you see these wonderful images of the rain coming down, and it feels very jungle, and it feels extraordinarily isolating. And the way they did the cinematography is absolutely incredible, because that is really the way that I think people would feel like if they were isolated in a tropical storm in the middle of a zoo/theme park. But there also is a technological disaster, because right in the middle of it, power goes off. So the power actually gets knocked out at some point. And we'll talk about how they get the power back on later, but to get the power off is actually one of the most common technological disasters that we really experience. So when you think about the power going out and all the necessary things that occurs as a result of that, magnify that if you're in a park filled with prehistoric animals. Then the last one is what we call security emergencies. Not only are animals going around attacking people, which is absolutely a security emergency. In fact, I used to work with RV parks and campgrounds from around California, and one of the things I used to discover is that animal attacks are some of their biggest security hazards, because animals don't realize that it's private property, don't care, they're just there to get food or water or whatever, and it's a hazard to the people who are in those spaces. Not only that, There's actually also a cyber attack because one of the computer hackers actually is trying to steal genetic embryos in order to sell it to a competing organization. That is obvious industrial espionage. But in addition to that, he actually hacks it so that he can get through the security gates easily, one by one, without having any kind of interference. So that makes that really unique. You don't see that in a lot of other kinds of disaster movies. This one is certainly the first. And this cyber attack creates cascading effects throughout the park, making it a perfect disaster scenario. Because the cyber attack resulted in a technological disaster, so a security disaster turned into a technological disaster because his cyber attack resulted in the power going out. Power going out then created a security emergency because guess what? Now all the animals are out. It exacerbated and made worse the natural disaster. So all of a sudden, something that was a rather innocuous tour around the park became a deadly excursion. So not only did this movie depict the three major kinds of disasters, but also showed the complete lack of preparedness makes it the perfect disaster movie in depicting the ready phase. In the next video, we're going to talk about react, which is how do people initially react in a disaster, and how is that so well depicted in Jurassic Park. Please tell us any videos and other challenges you want me to take on, because I'm going to do some amazing videos in the coming months, so stay tuned. Click here to get more from the show, and please like, subscribe, and comment. Thank you for watching, and don't forget, if you prepare for a disaster, you'll never experience one.